It's the story of a man with ADHD, full of logic and ideas and energy, attention and money, but lacked emotion, lost his keys, couldn't listen, interrupted, and was sometimes late to things. He had it all except for the most important things of all: faith in God, friends and family. But in the ashes of his oil business burning to the ground, he got up on a rock and made himself a new man. The Lord there by his side, his twin boys there behind, and his friends holding his hand. Life's winds and rain can blow away $35 million. They can take away my faith and love and rock solid real estate empire. Thank you, Father in heaven, for giving me ADHD and the help from friends and employees and family. Life ain't easy, but it is full of miracles when you're here with me. Say hello to Eric and his mustard seed.
Today, I'd like to talk about real estate investing, the psychology of it, but more importantly, how one's brain shapes their life path, particularly their career path. Some might be suited for real estate, and some brains maybe for something else. And what kind of brain is the word I'm using, but what kind of people maybe might be suited for real estate and others who are not, and how one's brain, such as yours, who has ADHD, that helps you in certain, jobs and industries, and maybe hurts you in other ways. And we're never going to be able to be perfect at one job because our brain has its limits and powers. But that's sort of the general scope of what I think the path this conversation will take is. But first, let's talk about what your life was like, what you were doing before all this.
Sure. So there was a lot to unpack there real quick, but no, we got a framework to talk about. But yeah, so to start off, then what I did before was I was raised in real estate. My dad graduated in Pittsburgh and then moved out to California, but he had always done some rentals and properties. And so when I was a kid, I can remember, playing, and I'd be in apartments and fixing fans with him and doing gardening and stuff outside. And so there was a lot of apartments and fixing up and being hands on. So I remember that. And one of his biggest things was, this is a retirement long term game of, putting your money into that, putting your money into gold, putting your money into, some things that are your retirement side things. He didn't do it as just his only, source of income. He always had a job or a W-2 or a company, eventually owned some companies. And so that's what I got into. He got it. He was in the oil business most of his life out of Pittsburgh, and so he came out and started an oil company. And so when I graduated from California University of Pennsylvania, I came out to California, the state, and started working for my dad's oil company. So I learned the oil company. I learned a lot of, it's kind of like a, Mad Men, the show, kind of that mentality. It's still kind of the oil world is still kind of a wild, wild west where you have a lot of entertaining and you're working with relationships and you do a lot of stuff through connections and things like that. So it was an interesting time, learned the oil business. And then I went from my father's company to start my own. And I did that. He had sold the company I was kind of running it. And then he had sold the company, and I liked the ownership, but it was just, I asked them to be on commission only because I was sales based, and they said no, we want to keep it on salary, and if you have other opportunities, you can take them. And my opportunity was to leave and kind of taking my relationships with me. So I started my own oil company on my own, and went from there. And I was one guy in my office, and grew it to 150 employees, about 150 million a year. And then I had kind of a crash and a meltdown. But there's real estate intertwined with all that. But the oil company itself kind of crashed and meltdown for COVID. I got into hand sanitizer and it completely destroyed everything. So it's a big conversation. But I lost about 35 million personally and had to reboot. And my reboot was real estate.
Okay, maybe we'll get back to that little incident later. You also, from what I understand, have ADHD, and you say you're neurodivergent, which is sort of a vague term for me, but at least ADHD is sort of clear. When did you realize that you had ADHD?
That's the crazy part. So people would chat and make fun. And back in the day, I mean, I'm a little bit older, but they'd say ADD. Oh yeah, whatever ADD and this and that. And I lose my keys daily, and all kinds of little issues that you know. And I saw a lot of stuff with my father too. It's funny, but now that I'm progressing, I'm getting to do almost the same things that he does. Whereas you'd go and do one thing and you just don't finish it, and you go to the next, and your attention, to me, it's a little bit, it's not an attention deficit, it's an overload of attention, really. You're giving each thing a deficit because it's not getting finished, but your attention goes to everything around you. You're attentive to everything. So you're looking at all these things, and you can just, shiny things take you off your path. So you may be going to do something and you're on your way and you just get diverted. And so that's happened to me a long time. And you know, it helped when I developed a company that I had to delegate things all the time. So I would have functional people doing that. But if you were to have me do all these jobs just myself, it would be a mess. But there's the superpowers of ADHD, and also being neurodivergent. You have these, they call it on the being on the spectrum. I equate that to some things you're way up here on. You might be a genius level and amazing on, and some things you're way down here. So the spectrum to me is this a graphical pattern of an ups and downs of your different strengths and weaknesses. And a maybe normal person might be in this range, but your strengths may be up here on some things, and your weaknesses may be away below. When I say normal person, it's a they call it neurotypical. So there's a neurotypical brain and there's a neurodivergent brain. Neurodivergent brain has different things happening at one time, whereas the neurotypical kind of fits into a more of a stable pattern, I would say.
Okay, so if it was like a video game, like in Mario Kart, there's certain characters that are pretty stable, like Mario or something, but then you get these weirdos like Bowser or Luigi or whatever. The same thing goes in like Street Fighter or something. Like this person's like agility is off the charts, but his speed is I don't know, here and there, and he's kind of wonky. Maybe he's kind of like that, but this guy is really good for certain situations. That's a weird analogy. I haven't played video games for like 20 years, but it seems like it's sort of like that.
Love that. Yeah, no, that's a good analogy. I mean, yeah, so you've got different things that you're really good at, and then some things you're not, and that's the crazy part, because you also don't know if you didn't diagnose yourself. You didn't self-diagnose. A doctor didn't do it. You didn't take tests. That's the crazy thing, and that's why I like to bring a little bit of awareness to. It's just I didn't know, and I grew 100. I made a $150 million company, but yet I'm not that good with relationships or emotions, or I come off as more of like a computer, and less emotions and less sensitivity and things like that, which sometimes turn people off. I mean, people don't like that and they don't understand it, and they're like, "What's wrong with this guy?" Or you have some social awkwardness where you're like, "Don't know what to do in a social situation." But then, as you get through life, they call it masking. So you kind of mask and you learn what you should do. Doesn't mean your brain told you to do it. It's just, I know what I should do. And so then you pretend, and you pretend to get through it, which is the masking part, they say.
Are there any times when well, of course there are some, probably many times when it got in the way of your work?
Certainly, always. I mean, it's a real struggle to keep focus. And then there is a superpower to that, because I consider that part of the gift is I can hyper focus then. But also, when you get into certain situations or stressful situations, you may be good at it, which I'm better at stressful things, or when, let's say, being late. Oh, a normal person would say, okay, look, let's leave 30 minutes so that we're relaxed and we can be, on time. Me, I'm like, I want to be efficient, and then I'll try to do this game in my mind. It's, believe me, it's not a game. It's just what my mind does, and it says, well, it only takes 15 minutes to get there, so leave it 20. But then all of a sudden, something comes up, it messes your mind up, and oh, I forgot to feed the dog. You go run back, you do that, do this. Now you got 12 minutes, and you're there, and now I'm late. You did everything you could to not be late, but you're late. And it's like, those are the things that really happen daily for me everywhere.
Yeah. Well, honestly, it sounds a lot like me, and I do get the comments of like, "Oh, you got ADHD, you got your ADD," and yeah, maybe. But I never like go ahead and like try to get diagnosed or something. I don't know what that's. Is that kind of fear or laziness or like or maybe I like it. Maybe I like the superpowers of it. So I'm like, I don't want to lose who I am. Did anything change when you got diagnosed, or did anything change?
I think you're 1,000% right. I mean, I had this book a long time ago. It was a Dr. Phil book. I got so far into it, and I loved it. And I got into it. It was like something about your authentic self or something to that effect. I got so far into it. Well, then I got to a part where it said, list all these things out and put all these things. And I did that, in my diagnosis thing on these little pages were disastrous. Like, you're a little bit of a mess. And then I got to a part where it says, do this next thing. And I swear I wanted to do it, and I can't do it. And I haven't done it to this day. I can't do the exercise, what he wants me to do. And I can't tell you why. I want to do it. I want to see what it looks like, but I just can't bring myself to it. So it's a very strange little thing. For me, getting the test, I self-diagnosed in the sense that I knew something's going on, but I did these tests because I met somebody that was, Asperger's and different things, and I said, okay, I'll do this test, and so I did that, and really, these scores came to a point. I did it twice, and all the doctor's tests that you would get from a regular psychologist or psychiatrist, and I did those, and that's what it came out to. So I did those at a time where I really didn't have time to kind of delve in and work on these things myself. So I've still put off that time. I have a time frame when it's coming, but I haven't dove into the actual doctor part of, maybe tweaking and doing some things with it, because I really still need the superpowers. I need to keep things status quo until I have a little gap in time where I can tinker with the engine up there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it seems to be working for you. So I don't know, and I assume you probably have some little tools or behaviors or whatever that help you along the way. Maybe yeah, it's not medication, but it's something else. So what do you kind of use to help you with sort of the weaknesses of ADHD?
Well, I mean, I'm fortunate and blessed in the sense that, that I have a staff. I have some people that help me. So I'm fortunate to have people that help me, but they probably didn't know that I didn't needed this type of help a couple years ago. But now that I, work through it, and they know that, hey, I have somebody that literally asked me, hey, do you have your wallet, keys, and phone as I walk out the door? So those little things help, because I could leave my wallet, and then I'll be, down the street and not have any way to pay for something or whatever. It happens all the time, but not anymore. I mean, but in my life, it's happened. So yeah, I have little ways to help myself. A lot of the things, the smaller things are, making lists are really big. If you can make some lists, those help. Crossing off the list and feeling good about it. If I don't do those, sometimes I'll get actual anxiety about the fact that I know there's things that are sitting out there that I need to do. You got lists, don't you? You're looking for
Yeah,
a
yeah.
list.
I'm trying to find my lists. I'm like, there's so many. I mean, there's actually only a couple. There's a couple. I feel like I have like a master list of like, it's a to-do list. It's a general to-do list, but I call it open loops because that's what I title the document, because it's basically open loops in my brain, just looping, do it, do it. And then I just want to check, I close these loops basically. And I have that one. I have like a little tiny notebook, and I just like each day I write a list of things to do, and then I cross them off, and it feels great. And if I don't do it, I'm like, I just want to get this stuff out of my brain, because I may or may not have ADHD, but there's all these, you're focusing on all these different things, and you want to calm down and just be able to focus on one thing or two things. You don't want to such a overloaded brain.
Yeah, 1,000%. And you know that I'm not a doctor, but I would say it's probably a chance you do have that. But and it's your choice to get through that. But I'll tell you this, my biggest thing is like I went through life thinking, why am I different? There's something different. I can't figure it out, but there's something off. And so I'd like to know that it's real, and this is that it's an eye-opening moment because you say, aha, this neurodivergent, this social awkwardness, these maybe some of these issues were this is what it was. It wasn't just, it's what it was real. You know what I mean? All I went through a life and there was thinking there's something going on, but I can't put your finger on it. But then when you get these things, it opens up a lot of, well, it closes some loops in your past, and you see, oh, you know what? This is why I was like that. And so those are good ways to get some closure on those. But then also moving forward, you say, oh man, I love this because I love these great things, but it also helped me start to identify the weaknesses. And that means paying more attention to, listening and to try and relax and not talk over people and different things. And I still, to this day, do it all the time. My staff probably wants to kill me all the time, but I'm thinking ahead of what they're saying before they say it. And so I'm like all the way down of what they want to say. And then I say it before they want to say it. And it's like, yeah, I know where you're going with it. Don't take 5 minutes to tell me. And then I interrupt and I say what they're going to say. And then they're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's where I was going. It's probably annoying, but that's just the way my brain thinks.
Well, I prefer that, and it makes it good for it makes for a good podcast guest because you're never going to run out of things to say. But I gotta keep my little comments short because you're gonna lose your brilliant idea, and I don't want that to happen. So yeah, I have a similar kind of problem. What are some of the other things you use? You mentioned lists, and I kind of interrupted you by looking for my lists. But was there anything else? Food, or I guess basic food and sleep and all that kind of stuff probably helps. But I don't know anything else you use.
I mean, right now, so that's the other cool part. I think a lot of nutrition's like, you look on the internet now, and I think a lot of the nutrition and the things that I've eaten all my life aren't good for that type of condition. So changes in diet, changes in things like that are all things that I've done and I'm doing. So that's awesome. I love that. As far as business goes, I stay on, that's the beauty part. Like I'm really good at those things in a business savvy and sense and different patterns and analyzations and things like that. So that makes me really good at those things. So, knock on wood, and been blessed on business, but also not a lot of people have lost $35 million and kind of lived to tell the tale. They normally melt and fall apart, but I did that in a sense of was trying to do the right thing and just cause kind of on a path and stuck with it too long, and all these different factors factor in and greed and different things come into play, and it wasn't meant to be. And so I was easy to move on from it because I loved real estate, but it simplified my life a lot. And most importantly, I got my little twins behind me. I got two twin boys, and so that really helped me realize that life isn't just business and money and success and running around and trying to make this certain number or hit these goals like a video game. It's not. There's people and your kids and your family, and those things have become the most important, and your spirituality and faith. And so that's really what came out of my loss of that company and that $35 million that I'd made, basically self-made from scratch. All my ideas came to fruition by visions and people helping me to get to those visions, but it really wasn't the right path to be on. So now I feel so good that alignment of what my purpose is and my buddies here, I'm way more connected than I was before. And if I would have stayed and kept that company, I probably wouldn't have gotten the ADHD idea that I have it. I would have stayed on this, kind of path that I was on, and it wasn't a path of a family man or realizing your weaknesses or being humble. It was a path of just keep going. And my brother once asked a long time ago, when's enough enough? Yeah. So I would have been kept going, and when is enough enough? So you got to take a step back and realize what's important and put that as a priority in your life.
Okay, so you were going a bit more full throttle before the collapse of the oil business slash becoming a sanitizer place.
Yeah, I mean, so about 15, it took about 15 years, but from myself in an office to 150 employees and 150 million in sales a year, over 15 years was pretty big leaps. You go through a lot of learning and a lot of business knowledge up in there, but then also, wasn't doing a lot of learning on family and emotions, and that's what I'm all about now. Relationships, family, taking care of my investors, taking care of my employees, all of those things.
Yeah, and we all need help from a friend, help with help from others. We can't go at it alone. And I think this is probably particularly true for people who are neurodivergent, say they're ADHD, and especially if they're say they're bipolar or schizophrenic or something. Like it makes me wonder, like if these people say with something like bipolar or schizophrenia, or is there something worse? I don't know, not worse, but I mean extreme. What their superpowers might be if they had the help from other people to fill in the gaps. But unfortunately, they often scare people away and bust up relationships and things. But you're able to keep these people in your life and leverage their strengths, which are maybe your weaknesses. And it's not just about helping each other, but it actually calms you down and probably gives meaning and purpose to your life. And like you said, it's not just with your employees and not just your family, but there's also God. So there's this general sort of sense of connectedness that really really helps with so many different things.
1,000%. And that's really a big part of it. Spirituality and connecting with God, and starting to slow down a little bit and realizing those things and putting those in the right spots is it's amazing. And getting a diagnosis and understanding some of these things, it helps you calm down a little bit because you're like, I know what's going on. I know what's going on in this brain. This brain is doing two things at once or 50 things at once.
And you mentioned how the diagnosis reframed the way you looked at your past. You saw yourself, certain events or things that happened, or the way you were, or something. So, how did your self perception, particularly of sort of past events or past selves, change?
So it gave peace to some of those things that you sit there and think about your past and things you've been through, and you wonder why you react a certain way. And there's a ton of things. I mean, I don't look like somebody who I get into a lot of fights or arguments, but I was like kind of like get like vigilante with my friends a little bit and be watching things, and I could go in places and see what people are talking about or watching or getting involved in other people's conversations. So I'm watching over here, and somebody's causing a problem here, and then then I might step into that problem and insert myself or be that vigilante, like, hey, da, 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 and get yourself into places that you weren't supposed to be. So I got in quite a few fights in my day. I did, I realized that also, listening to people is very important. You really do need to listen to people, even though you might know what they're going to say. They need to get it out. And if you interrupt them all the time, I could see how that'd be so annoying. I wish I didn't do it as much as I did or do. And I try to work on that. But all of those things come into play. But I could see now what somebody might on the outside say, this guy's a jerk or an ass or something. Uh, it wasn't my intentions. I'm always trying to be a good person and try to be good and decent. Or if you come up as insensitive because you're just logical and you come with this logic, and really it's a time that it should be have some a little bit more sensitivity. So I've been in all of those phases, and that's just a scratch of the surface of those things. But when you realize it, you can go back and say, I realized why I was doing this, and then you also realize, oh, and I could see why this person was thinking that. And so it's pretty interesting to me.
Back to real estate. How does Eric's brain help him in the real estate business? Talk about how ADHD or neurodivergence, your individual brain has helped you in this industry, this job, in this business.
Sure. Well, for me, I've always been, kind of blessed on that side of things with finding deals. I've always tried to find deals, finding under market deals. I think it helps me in pattern recognition and have building some systems that work. Don't know if that's always the case, but for the most part, I've never really, and I'm knock on wood, but I've never lost money in real estate. So for the most part, it's always been good to me. It's an asset class that's, it's always been said that, a lot of wealth is there. There's a lot of tax benefits. There's so many different ways that real estate benefits folks in just either a single family or an investor. So I've come up with ways to package that up, and I certainly feel that we've come up with something that's unique in terms of an investment for folks because it's a short-term investment. It's got a high return, and it diversifies them and tries to minimize the risk. So some folks might get into multifamily and in apartments and things, which they need to cash flow, and so there's a cap on kind of what you can make. Or on my side of things, it's volume, and so we're trying to hit a profit margin number constantly, and that pumps up the volume, and it does it quickly because we're in and out of these properties within 3 to 6 months, and so we're trying to turn folks in investors cash, and then we kind of give them a bigger stake in profit in our equation as opposed to when you go into a multifamily investment, you're kind of capped at what your rents can bring in. So what your rents can bring in compared to what your costs are, that's what you can give some of the investors plus a little bit for yourself. Whereas us, if we can keep turning things and keep those turns up, we can generate higher margins for the company overall, and therefore give people a higher margin on their investments.
Interesting. So you can still increase the margins and stuff, but still not take on too much risk.
Yeah, because now you're diversified on multiple properties across the country or across the area, as opposed to when you go to a multifamily, you're just in maybe one unit. So, I'll throw a name out there, but Grant Cardone, he's out there and he does a big program, and you go in, but when you invest, you're an owner in that property, but you'll be in there 5 to 7 years or 3 to 7 years, and you have a piece of it. And so it brings all these people into a piece of the ownership of that building. And to me, I didn't like my money tied up for that long because I like to feel liquid and being in control and move it around. And then, secondly, if for me, if something happens and I'm not doing it on a Grant Cardone level, that he's probably has all this intelligence of, hey, this is going to be great and we'll be fine because it's in this area. But what if you do it with your buddy and you get a 50-unit apartment building and you're doing it because they got a factory down the street and it's always been great? Well, what happens if that factory closes, or what happens if that building gets hit by a hurricane or tornado? And you probably have insurance, but you probably won't be able to cover the investors things and things like that. So to me, it's just one asset, when you're doing those multi-year and family deals, whereas these are you're constantly spread out over multiple single family residents. Every one we do, we spread everybody out, everybody's secured on them all. And then so that as they sell, they're there, and then you get new ones, but you want to be underwriting and making sure that they're always profitable. And then those profits are getting returned so that if something goes wrong on one over here, you've got 10 that are doing good so that your investors and your investments aren't affected by this one. That's my biggest thing. So the diversification over multiple assets as opposed to just one building attracted me to our program, and that's what I think makes a big difference in who we are. Probably three factors.
What kind of people, or what kinds of behaviors or brains or whatever might not do so well in the real estate business, and what kind of people thrive?
There's, it's funny. You can find almost all aspects of someone's brain and tendencies and characteristics, but I think the thrive ones are the ones that can combine some risk taking entrepreneurship along with some system and discipline in terms of staying in your lane, not getting too emotional about a one property or a deal, and those things are important. Or the ones that can get hurt are ones that just kind of think that everything's going to be a certain way. You need to have a good balance with anything really, but you need to have a good balance, I think, in real estate with some analytics and some other things. I've also seen some people that are way too conservative and that they miss the boat on things, and You can't be that way either, because that's really not, that wasn't your goal maybe to get into it either. So the more conservative you are, it's not good. The more risk taking and you know flying all over the place and fly by the seat of your pants type of decisions isn't good either in real estate. You've got to do a good amount of due diligence and then make sure you've done the best you can. And in theory, I always go in theory that you've done the work and the due diligence, it's going to work out. And then you have to have faith and trust it. And if it doesn't, it's hopefully not that far off that you're going to get hurt.
We talked about ADHD, and you're much more than just someone with ADHD. You have a rich past and lots of different experiences and influences. You mentioned university. You were in the military. God is an important part of your life. What are some of these other factors aside from ADHD that are shaping your life and your real estate journey?
So that's a good question. So the partnerships that you get to come along with. So something that when you're doing, let's say my oil company was more of a journey on your own. Whereas when you get into real estate, you can really dive into some communities and everybody can help each other. You can jump in on deals together. You can support each other a little more. You have a little bit more because there's just such a grand, massive asset class of real estate out there that there's usually always deals to be had. And when you get into those communities, those actually open up more deals. So being in a community is, I think, important, and having relationships and friendships is important because I think it helps you find deals and also helps you bounce ideas off folks. Whereas you might have an oil company, you've got vendors and you've got customers, and in between vendors and customers, you don't want vendors to know certain things and you don't want customers to know certain things, so you're in this box. Whereas real estate is like you can collaborate on a lot of things.
It probably also helps you control that fear and greed and the risk and reward and all these different things because you might get too risky or too conservative if you're on your own as well. That's another idea that kind of popped in my head. I know I have never invested in real estate. I kind of wish I did, not that I had the money, but I mean, I've done like a stock market investing, and I've really bit myself in the butt sometimes by trading options and things, and like, oh, I know the market's going to go down. And I'll buy all these put options and then destroy my annual income or whatever. So, but if I was like with other people, they might be like, hey, Mike, maybe let's just put 10% in the puts.
Yeah. Let's go 10% in the puts, throw about 50 over here and put it a little bit over here. Yeah, no, and I try to surround myself with those people because I could get like that. I do have that tendency. So I like to surround myself with folks that keep some of that in check. Yeah, for sure. So, and that's another part of calling these companies rock solid. I want to build on the sand, or I don't want to build on the sand. I want to build on the rock. So you want to not be on the sand. You don't want to be shifty and things. And that's a little bit of a biblical reference, but build on the rock, not on sand. So rock solid is based on, having those integrity and compliance and your clear optics in terms of your what you're doing, your path, your vision, so that everybody is kind of aligned with your path, and you have that support of your community and your team, that everybody knows what direction you're going in, and you just execute.
Yeah, and that Bible verse, the verse is Matthew 7:24-27, is on your website, and it's a part of your brand and it's part of your life. So maybe this isn't like a religious podcast, and I tend to err on the other side. But yeah, let's talk about Matthew 7:24-27.
Okay, so yeah, you look at that and you look at some of those things, and a lot of that came from, I don't know if you can imagine it, but anybody, and it's relative. So I had made $35 million, so, and I lost it. A lot of a meltdown is a disaster, and it feels like you're just dying because your company's dying. What are you going to do? Stabilize your family? All kinds of things come up. So it's a definite process. So I really want to be into helping people understand that someday. I'd love to get into some coaching or counseling in terms of somebody going through those type of things, to let them know that, hey, there's a rebound out there. But bringing that into the religious side of things, I had to pray. I had to get more and more faith into me. One of the huge changes is to realize now that I go through hardships all the time, and everybody does, no matter what you're in. unless you're completely stabilized, but you still go through all these things, ups and downs that feel like they're a big deal. So for me, bringing God into those moments, it seems warped, but the sense that bringing God into these hard moments and also thanking Him when you're in the easy moments, but in the hard moments, thanking Him to have the hard moments, to have Him with you, because it actually is a time that you spend more with Him when you're in trouble. So when you're in trouble, you tend to really focus on praying and get faithful and understand. And to this point, He's always brought me out of it. And things always seem to work out, or things always seem to get better. Doesn't mean I have $35 million in the bank right now, but it does mean I'm much more happier, and I get through challenges easier. So challenges to me are more, it's an opportunity sometimes to get more connected with God as well.
Yeah, I grew up religious, but I lost it in my teen years, which is kind of common, and I kind of, in a way, wish I was. I've found a sort of semblance of it by, feeling, connected to nature and feeling like I'm part of a larger whole or something. But, yeah, maybe it goes back to this whole potential ADHD me too, thinking, "Oh, I could do it alone. I got it." And how what a burden that might be lifted if I, like, let others into my life.
That connection, yeah, absolutely. It is. I'm telling you, I was the same way, and maybe it is an ADHD brain, but I was the same way. To this day, I struggle with what happens in my mind as I start to go through miracles and I make up things to explain the miracles. So I sit there and I think of all this stuff, and then it's difficult because I know I've seen miracles in my own time of like, wow, there's no way that could happen, or there's no way that coincidence could happen in terms of timing and connection. And it feels like almost it's like a godsend moment. It was meant to be. So like it was a divine intervention. So there's been times that I've been through those, so I feel them. But also, I used to analyze these miracles and be like, I can't, Bible, this, that, water, parting water, this doesn't make sense, all these things. And then I started to calm down and say, well, first of all, you have to have faith that you believe in God or this higher power, and you have to go through that. And if you have a little bit of faith, that's the beauty part of it. He says if you just have a little bit of faith, that can move mountains because it grows, and as you connect with other people, it grows and grows, and that it really helps with not being alone. And ADHD to me and being neurodivergent is a big part because you have a tendency to want to be alone because not everybody understands you or can figure you out, or you spend your time figuring other people out and you think everybody is maybe inferior. I don't know what they don't think the same. This doesn't make sense. They did this. Why do they do this? And you spend so much time thinking in your mind that you can overthink these things. So I've done that with the Bible and things like that. And so I'll just give you my hack on it is I put all those miracles to say, the miracle is the act itself. There's things that the Bible itself was written by man. It can be checked in all these ways, and everybody says, that it's got all these fact checks in it. But and I've never gone to that extent. But the miracles that come through the Bible and that try to give the relevance to all these things and say, hey, I'm God and I can do these things, is maybe whatever miracle that was, it is explainable in certain ways that we weren't there. But if you and I go down to the park and Christ was there and he was like, okay, you and I had a basket of fish and some bread, and we were like, okay, man, we don't have enough to feed all these people. Like we thought 10 people were coming and thousands come. But all of a sudden, Joe's Pizza down the stop saw all these people and believed in Christ or believed in this, and then brought all this bread and pizza and it just showed up. That to me may be an explainable miracle because we had no way to feed these people. And the next thing you know, they were fed. Or Jesus said, hey, these people are going to be fed. And we're like, come on, dude, we got 2 baskets here. Now, it does say the baskets are filled and so on and so forth. But that was my way of just coming through ideas of trying to take this logical approach to miracles that didn't make sense to me, or I couldn't figure out from that ADHD brain, and just say, look, you have faith that, those things happened. Maybe they're not happen exactly how you picture them, as this mythical type of a thing that doesn't make sense in logic. Maybe they happen logically. It just, the take on it and the spin on it was from the people that were there that said, hey, magically we just were able to feed everybody.
No, and it might be better just to not try to make sense of it and find the logic and reason, because although rationality, reason, and science and all these things help us in a lot of areas of our life, it's this feeling of faith, that leap of faith. Even though I say I'm not religious. Soren Kierkegaard's probably my favorite philosopher, and he talks about how there's this leap of faith into the unknown where reason tells you the exact opposite or whatever, but it feels so good and it brings you this meaning and passion and this exuberance in life, and it it reminds you that we as humans cannot know everything. That there's all this mystery out there that our brains just cannot comprehend, and that kind of feels nice just to, even though you don't know it's definitely true. I mean, maybe you do because you have faith, but I mean, in a way, science and logic cannot really make quite sense of it. So, but you jump into it anyway, and you keep going, and then that builds this life and this action that just feels really good. It's like believing in 2 + 2 = 5 is just, it just feels better than believing 2 + 2 = 4, or going wandering through the streets without your GPS or your Google Maps on a vacation. It just feels better than, you know, checking, okay, we're gonna go to this restaurant, and then you just turn left, turn right, and you're following the GPS along the way. You're like, okay, well, I knew I was gonna get there the whole time. What's the fun in that? But you might find an even better place by letting go of all the technology and rationality and tools and all that.
1,000%. And that's why I was saying, like, these crises and things brought my faith way back to me, that I regained it. And I did the same thing as you, lost it maybe in my teens and gained it back in my 20s and 30s. But it regained those things. But that was why I was trying to explain to you, that ADH mind always hung me up on those things, because I would think about them or ponder on them. Like you're saying, at a certain point, you just got to let it go and say, hey, have faith. It was done. It got done. It says it was done. People said it was done. It's proven. Don't try to figure out how it was done, because you can't, and you're just speculating. But it let me get past those, because those are some of the things that maybe not just ADHD, but maybe neurodivergent. You can get stuck on something. You get stuck on a subject, and you just keep wanting to go on it. Even sometimes people want to talk to you about something, they want to move on, and you're like, oh, you just hammer it because you have to get this closure. It's kind of a weird thing to have happen, but that focus and closure is what, on that piece, is what I was kind of explaining, how I got past it, and just like you said, dive in, and you got to take a leap of faith at a lot of times.
And you could take that leap of faith, and you can have faith in things besides God. What are some other things that you have faith in that have helped you?
Well, I've had faith in my recently. I mean, just since this has happened, I've had faith in certain friends, and understanding that friends that stick by you, the faith in the fact that when you have friends that stick by you in hard times, those are your true friends. And the ones that are gone, or the ones that don't talk to you, or the family members that aren't around or don't talk to you now, they really weren't friends, or, that close as they should be, because things come and go, but the true friends will stick by you, stick through you. And so faith in tight friendships and tight relationships mean a lot to me now, a lot more. And friends and family that you can count on a couple of hands is a lot better when you thought you had hundreds of friends, and they turn out to not be around when you go through tough times.
What are some other career paths that might suit the ADHD brain? And if, I know it's not going to happen, I'm not saying it's going to, somehow the real estate industry just completely collapsed, like your oil company. What are some other careers that you think you might enjoy? Other industries, sort of kinds of work that suit the ADHD brain and or yours?
Okay, so this is a good question. For me, I'm an entrepreneur, so I feel like I can get in any industry and be the business guy in that industry. So outside of real estate, I'm still intrigued right now about, private equity, and buying businesses that make sense, that cash flow, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be retiring soon. So those ones that cash flow, are, things that make sense to me. So that's something. But that's me as an entrepreneur. So I can hopefully find things if I was ever to also venture out of the real estate realm I'm in. But also ADHD wise, I'll tell you what feels really good. This is going to be weird, might sound weird, but anything you can do that keeps you, your mind, and your body occupied at one time. I can get on a tractor and I could be on there for 2 days. Like if you wanted me to move stuff, I'm just tractoring away and I literally am altered focus because you can't move the tractor without your arms and legs and vision. You can't pick up dirt, move the dirt, be safe, do all these different things without your brain being fully engaged. And literally, you start not thinking about other things. So yeah, I think anything that has where you can get your body and mind into it, then that's a good thing for an ADHDer because you have no excuse but to keep your mind focused on that. And so you're not doing some one thing and going off somewhere else because literally you're in a machine. So I like that one.
Okay, so in that case, what would be some jobs that would be quite painful or not very pleasant for someone with ADHD?
Stuff where you have to just not be able to get out of the box, think out of the box. You have to do everything exactly a certain way. To me, that's a big issue in terms of, just you can lose focus. I mean, anything that you get to where you're either just sitting there and you can drift off, your brain will take you to drift off itself. So literally, I mean, corporate America in a sense to me is difficult because working for a corporation without having autonomy in the things that I've done, it would be difficult because you have to fit in a box, and I usually have a way of coming up with ways to fix things out of the box. So that's one of those things that helps me. Don't know if all ADHDers are like that, but you're thinking all the time, so you can come up with solutions. I mean, our richest man in the world has, says he has autism and ADHD and things like that. He's Elon Musk. I mean, he's got some issues, and you can tell that, and you got some social awkwardness and some things you can just see right on TV. But is the guy a genius? Yeah. Is he probably good at relationships or emotional stuff and some other crazy stuff or talking to people? Not always. No. Um, Maybe even our president's the same way. Maybe he has those things that cause him to say certain things and less filtered, but at the same time has good skills on certain things. But social norms and being socially acceptable aren't always his number one suit.
And this is sort of a bonus side question that doesn't really relate to the theme of this podcast, but it's something I'm curious about, and I think a lot of us are. What are some great opportunities for people to make money these days if they just are like they don't have anything right now, but they want to, you know, go down. You mentioned that there's a lot of baby boomers retiring and they want to get rid of their businesses. How would you even find these businesses from these retirees or whatever? And what are some other kind of and there's no, it's not a get rich quick thing, but like, I mean, what are some viable paths that maybe it takes many years, but you would kind of recommend specifically maybe for people with ADHD, but anyone who's willing to take on a little bit of risk.
Yeah, so that's a good question. One is, I mean, I could think it's one in real estate. There's wholesaling in real estate. It's a little bit more like phone sales and things like that, but there's wholesaling, which I'm into and available to mentor on. So there's wholesale in real estate. There's these businesses where when I say businesses, think of a business that's a service oriented business that today there's so many advantages technology wise that you can make them efficient. So if you took it from somebody that say is 65 or 70 years old, they kind of want to retire, they're still writing out their invoices on pads of paper and they got a ton of files in there, but yet they cash flow over 20 to 40%. Might be something to look at. So those are things where you can go in and say, hey, look, we can put in we've got a staff and we can put in things and the efficiencies can make that business more profitable. And that business owner might be one that takes on some of the debt to get himself out of it. And you take on the debt and you get him bought out of it over a period of time and he's ready to move on and you recreated a little bit of the efficiency in the business. That's a great one to look into. So there's tons of those HVACs, and I could give you a ton of different business types that might be in there. But if you or anybody wants to talk to me or email me, they can, and I would give you that list.
Yeah. And people might also want to contact you about if they want to get involved with your diversified short-term real estate portfolio. That I don't quite understand yet, but I think I got a good grip on it. It's basically you have these fix and flip properties, but you got a bunch of them, so it's like an ETF of them, but not really an ETF, but it's this diversified portfolio of short-term 3 to 6 month properties or something. Is that right?
Exactly. So you're getting an amount, but it gives an investor to come in, and we have a 506c fund, which is for accredited investors, and there will be ways that if you're not accredited to get involved, if you write us, we probably have some fund of funds and things like that. Where let's say you have $7,000 or $10,000, you could put it into a fund, and then they basically buy our fund, and you get the fees through it. So there's a couple ways to do that. But as far as us advertising and getting out to accredited investors, we have a 506c fund, which is rocksolidcap.com is the website. So that's rocksolidcap.com, and you can go on there, look at what we've done, past projects, but you can go on and invest, and it literally brings down, you know, drill downs, frequently asked questions, testimonials, and you can put in there the minimum's 25,000. The interest on it, or the payouts, are 22%, 24%, and 26%, depending on how much you put in, and that's an annual rate. So, and it's like an income fund. So you get paid that dividend or that payment monthly, and then you can choose to either re-up and stay in it every year. It's a year term, or you can pull the money out, and when you do so, you get that money's for that year. So we've got it at right now 22% annual, 24% annual, and 26% annual, depending on how much money you put into the fund.
Okay, so people can go to your website if they want to learn more about that. Anywhere else you recommend they go?
As far as I go, I mean, my email's open, Eric at rocksolidap.com. So anybody can send me an email for sure. I can either direct them to someone on my team if it needs some attention. Otherwise, my email's definitely accessible. Social media, we have websites on almost all platforms. So Rock Solid Capital and Rock Solid Asset Partners should be around. But there's a bunch of stuff that we can do, and just anyone connecting with me. Honestly, we were going to be continuing to give some content out there that's really educational. Some tax advantages with some professionals, different things that get you into something, and really the goal in passive real estate investing at times is you can do it on the side and put these away, just like you would investing into the market, but you've got some control and some ownership over some of those investments and self-directed investments. But as you grow that principal, you're essentially trying to grow the principal that provides a passive income as much as your income. So let's say you're making 100,000 a year and you get 22% from me. You need to get 500,000 in a fund that gives you 20% to put away that 100,000 a year, and then you essentially don't, your income is covered. So your job isn't as important as it once was, because hey, if your job's your only job and you get fired and you were making 100 grand, you got to go look, and you're in trouble. If you have these investments that are providing that passive income and you grow, you got a little, you've got a little leeway that if you lose your job, you still got the same amount of income coming in from your investments.
22% sounds really high, though. It sounds like risky, and like you explained it, it's not as much because it's diversified. But that's really beating the market big time. Well, in recent years, maybe not, but in general, that's a pretty high annual return. So how do we enter that without feeling a little bit like, oh God, is this a Bernie Madoff thing or something? People are naturally gonna have those fears.
1,000%, and that's why we want to provide enough content and enough things on there that kind of ease those tensions. But that's the difference of our fund. So let's say you put 100,000 in, I can do a house with 100,000. So I do a house with 100,000, but I get it done. It's a 1 year term, but I get it done in 6 months. I use that 100,000 again to do the second one. So I've done 2 houses and made twice the profit in 6 months. So essentially, hard money from a bank is 10 or 12%. If I take your 22% and I did 2 houses, it's really 11% that I spent on each house, or 11% in that time range is what I spent. So really, the more I can do in volume wise, the lower I cut back my interest rate. So I'm sharing with you guys more than, say, someone that might be sharing that has a capped fixed rate. When they're doing rentals, you have a cap because you have only these rents and these expenses. Now, if you shoot up, and the other thing about being an owner is if something goes wrong and everything blows up, all those ownership group, you need to come up with some cash to fix it because you own it. So in those different things, when you have syndications and, oh, shoot, all of our ACs went out and everything, blah, 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 and our expenses shot up. And so what we thought our budget was for year one, we were going to make money and you were going to get this. It's not really projected because we lost it all in this, or, this happened or that happened, or, oh, shoot, the foundation went bad and, I got to go over here. So the reason I like this model of a fast-paced in and out of each of these transactions is we're basing them and underwriting them to do well. And if one doesn't do well, it doesn't crash the rest of the system. If 5 don't do well, it doesn't crash the investors. They still make all the run because they're the lifeblood of the system. So they always get paid first, and we base our net profit after the investors get paid.
That's beautiful. I knew about these fix and flips, but I know we can do it in this way, and that sort of opens up a lot of nice possibilities for a lot of people, because most people cannot just do that on their own. Like, they don't want to enter that kind of. I got to clean it up and fix it up. I know it's a good kind of return, but I don't know, not for me. So this is kind of a good backdoor into it.
Sure. And in a typical business, I mean, 30% is a great, if I was at the oil company and I was making 30% at 150 million, I would have been really happy. I wasn't making and netting 30%. So, when you get down to that 22% range net, it's a great, great, great rate. And it's, and we do it by volume and have them making the turns. So we've got to be profitable. We got to make the turns and keep investors happy that way. Eventually, I mean, as we do those, that fund may change and maybe that rate will go down. But for now, us starting out and, we've been in it, a couple of years, the typical multifamily rates are out there, probably about 10 to 15%. So we wanted to, be over the market, and that's why we offer a great attractive rate and a great term. And we want to, show people the way. And this is a way for you to get into it without having to do it yourself, but still making a great rate.
And people can put this in their Roth or their IRA or something, or is it just an individual taxable account?
Roth, IRA, private money, those end up being way more tax advantaged, obviously. So if you use your Roth or your IRA into that fund, you get it. S&P 500, I think over for 99 years averages about 11%. So obviously we're over that, but all investments are risky and have risk. Even if you put it in S&P and it crashes, and people are probably seeing over the last 2-3 months, Trump mentions tariffs and a quarter of your 401k wipes out. And it's like, these things are a little bit more thought out, and our investors are very important to us. So we need to perform, because if we don't, it's end game, because you don't have any investors in order to scale. So you're stuck there. So the investors help us scale. We help the investors with a higher rate, and it's a win-win for everyone.
Anyway, thank you so much today. It was my first time to explore the topic of real estate or anything finance related on this podcast. We've been sticking to ADHD, yes, and like whatever trauma and all that kind of stuff. But this is kind of exciting. I'm not getting bored of like all that straight up mental health stuff. But it's kind of fun to let's apply mental health to other things like real estate and who knows, history or whatever. So that might be a new direction I'm going in. And thank you for being part of that and teaching me about real estate and money and your brain and ADHD. And it was a very fun conversation. I enjoyed talking to you. We even got into faith and all that. So yeah, thanks again. I'm looking forward to making money. No, I'm kidding. I'm looking forward, looking forward to, keeping this relationship going with you.
1,000%. Let's do stuff together. And I'm going to try to do a podcast as well. And maybe you can help me with that, but love to have you around. But I'd like to incorporate in my podcast how we bring in ADHD and different careers and their journeys along with the ADHD and entrepreneurial spirit and how that all comes together. I didn't get a chance to say one thing, but I think a maybe don't quote me, but it's either a 60 or 300% more chance that an entrepreneur has ADHD or has some type of neurodivergence. So these are people that work a lot. They work in their head. So it actually is an advantage to people that get stuff done that they have this constant wheel running. Doesn't make them great maybe in normal everyday life or maybe doing day to day things, but it does make them have a constant motor running. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. But you got to find the right place to put it. Like you said, you don't. I mean, it might be fun to drive a tractor for 40 years, but I mean, you could have been building a SpaceX or something. So,
But I really enjoy it. Like you get me on a trip, you taking me off for 2 days. Like, hey, lunch, dinner, and I'm like, shut in the dark.
yeah. So I guess I got to remind myself of this. I think this podcast is a great direction, but talking to you does wake me up to the fact that maybe there is more I can do. There's something even better. I want to keep this going. I mean, probably forever. But at the same time, like I am attracted to this idea of doing something bigger, like what you're doing. It's not easy, but like if I learn how, I can maybe I can build some kind of company or start selling something myself and get off the tractor. This is not exactly a tractor. This is more like a nice little helicopter or something. But I can get into a jet or a spaceship or something.
I love it. I love it. Well, if I can help in any way or you want to connect, let me know. We'll make it happen.